This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Fully Managed podcast. Thank you, Cory, so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So today, because you are a fellow Philadelphian, fellow Philly friend, as I like to do the alliteration, we're going to start with some rapid-fire questions about Philly. Are you ready?
Sure am.
Alrighty. Okay. Easy one. First word that you think of when you hear Philadelphia. No thinking. Just
gritty.
Gritty. Perfect. Exactly what I'm looking for. Okay. Okay. I should have said what word am I thinking of right now? Okay. Next one. What celebrity do you think of when you think of Philadelphia?
Will Smith.
I knew it. I was here. I get the same answers I would say probably every time. Like it's probably between Rocky, Will Smith. Sometimes people say gritty as a celebrity, which I Okay. Next one is favorite cheesesteak spot. This one is divisive for sure.
Ooh, Angelo's.
Good job. If you say Pat's and Geno's, I'm gonna fight.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Pat's and Geno's is number one at like 2:00 in the morning, no doubt. But
yes, nothing compares.
Yeah, nothing. If the sun is out, we're not going to Pat's and Geno's.
We're not going to Pat's and Geno's. I don't want to be able to see what's going on. I just want to eat it and enjoy it.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay. The next one is, what is one small business that you frequent the most? This can be for any purpose.
Ooh. Man, let me think about that. I don't know if I have one. I'm trying to think, like, where do I feel like I usually go to like the bigger businesses.
What about like a restaurant? That's a small business.
Yeah. You know what? This is in my neighborhood. I'll say Dock Street Brewery. It's not necessarily small, but you know.
Yeah, but it's not small as in physically, but there's not more than one, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So like it's still a small business, and I've been there and I absolutely love it too. So no debate there. Okay, maybe, well, now this one might be the same thing, but what is your favorite place for a drink or a meal?
Oh, all right. So it's not the same place, but
that's good.
A meal. I'm going to go Barclay Prime.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. I'm a steak guy. Love it. It's not like I go there often because it's super expensive. But when I do go, it's well worth it every time.
No, 100%, and I appreciate that because I will be telling my boyfriend that I got a recommendation because he's also a steak guy. I don't understand hunk of meat dinner, but I
with a baked potato, you know.
Okay, the baked potato is still, yeah. I'm really more there for the baked potato.
And I think they have like lobster tail and things like that, so you got options.
Crazy. Okay. I'm already sold. Okay, thank you. This game is just intended on getting recommendations for me and for no one.
Yeah, where should we go?
Okay. Last one. If you were to change something about Philly, what would it be?
Man, better subway system.
100%.
Like, I need more than north, south, east, west.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be really nice. I just think about the high-speed railways that could exist in just the country in general, and I'm like, this could be so perfect if we could just upgrade our public transportation.
Having been to Japan last year, the difference between like our transportation and their, honestly, not even just the bullet train, but like just their general subway system.
Everything.
Like, here's a platform, it has a number, it has a color, and we have several different signs pointing you in that direction. So you really don't even need to speak the language. You know, there are times where like we would get a little bit confused, but like it's pretty much point A to point B. Nothing like Philly, New York, etc. So yeah, I was like, "Ooh, can we somehow bring this over to the U.S.?" But I digress.
No, I completely agree. That is actually, what inspired the high-speed railway comment, because my friend had recently went to Japan as well and just told me about how sad it was in comparison to us. Like, I've been here for 8 years and I still get lost in Suburban Station. Maybe I'm stupid, but
it's not even the same stratosphere in terms of efficiency, effectiveness. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yes, it's very funny. But yes, I completely agree with you. Most people's comments I also do agree with the changes of Philadelphia. So it's we have a lot of we got some work to do.
Yeah.
But, we all know it, and that's the camaraderie. We all understand. A lot of cities will fight to the death that they're perfect, and we know we're not, and that's a good thing. I mean, you should be humble.
Like, I'm okay with it. Hopefully it changes in my lifetime, but not holding my breath.
Exactly. It's totally okay. We're being positive here. Okay. Now that you've entertained me with all of my Philadelphia questions, thank you for these new recommendations that I will be stealing. Tell me a bit more about yourself. Tell the audience a little more about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your professional journey up to this point, a little bit about what you're doing today, and everything that you think is important to say in between.
Cool. So as we know now, Philadelphia, born and raised, have not left here for more than a couple months at a time, as is with a lot of Philadelphians, I'm sure. Went to Temple, shout out Temple, and then started, it's kind of been a little bit of a Philly-centric career journey. Most of my career was spent at Comcast doing SEO and a little bit of other kind of marketing ventures. And then before going out on my own, the second half of my career was spent at Campbell Soup Company. So two companies that are headquartered in Philadelphia, despite being worldwide, nationwide. And now I run my own agency. I've done so for about the past 5 or 6 years, mostly focused on SEO, Google Ads, and content marketing. We do a bunch of other sort of digital marketing adjacent things, but those are our sort of like core offerings. And I've been doing that since, basically like 2019, 2020.
Wonderful. Well, what about working in these kind of like corporate conglomerates made you want to open your own agency? Because I feel like a lot of people have different reasons as to why.
Yes. So I think I honestly sort of kind of stumbled upon doing my own thing. Like, I started out when I was at Comcast and knew that the corporate rat race got you like a 2% raise a year. And that was just not going to cut it for me as far as my discretionary spending, if you will. And I was like, all right, still have student loans, paying rent in the city, so on and so forth. I need to figure out a way to make additional money. And I found out that there were people that needed SEO freelancers. So that's really where I started was while I was at Comcast, realizing that I could sort of kind of do freelance, in my spare time. And then, as I got more experience doing that, it grew into, I think I can actually do this, even bigger than, a single freelancer, but also simultaneously realizing that I could take the things that I didn't like about corporate, and take the things that I did like, about the corporate environment, and use those to, when I start my own company, shape my own culture, that I want, as opposed to, a little bit more of the like starchy, super formal, corporate environment that sometimes doesn't necessarily allow for, personality to shine through. Or if you're at a bigger company, like Comcast, there's a whole bunch of red tape that you have to, cut through to get things done. It was just fun to be more agile on my own. If I thought of something, I could do it that same day if I wanted to, as opposed to having to, run through 800 different checks and balances and approvals.
Yeah, I can completely understand that perspective. I even spoke to a creative director from Amazon the other day on the show, and they were kind of talking about like sometimes the bureaucracy of everything and like the levels and steps they have to go through to get like a project approved sometimes kind of kills the idea a little bit, in the idea that it's being altered and tweaked over time, and now it's like to be made perfect, but then it kind of doesn't have that same vigor that it did when you created it in the first place. And that's something that I think is very troubling about, that safety sometimes isn't necessarily a good thing in all cases.
Yeah, for sure. I think I will say even though Comcast as an entity was bureaucratic in that way, I got lucky personally, and I think this definitely is a big influence on my journey overall, which is that I joined the digital marketing team at Comcast when it was like 15 people, maybe. It eventually grew to like 100 plus. And I got there at a point where, for lack of a better term, the Comcast website wasn't super useful to anybody who wanted to buy or even, do any sort of like customer service stuff. So I wasn't just kind of pigeonholed in one specific area. I had my, focus, which was, more SEO, but I also got exposure to every single, facet of the marketing journey, if you will, because we were all putting this thing together at the same time. And it was almost like being at a startup within this massive company, because there was nothing established really. At least the best practices, I should say, were not established when I showed up there. We built it over time. I was there for like 8 years. And it was a lot of experimentation, a lot of exposure, and things that I realized now that I'm running my own business that, I could take some of the stuff that I learned, in terms of formality and making sure that things are kind of put together, in a, step-by-step way. I could take that to my current role, and the company, and impart those things onto my team, as well. So I got to like cut out a little bit of the stuffiness, but also realize like you can't go too far in the opposite direction. There is a rhyme or reason for why a lot of this stuff goes the way it does.
Yeah, exactly. Like if going too far in the other direction, then there's kind of this disorganization. Like people aren't clear what their goals are and what their positions are. But it is definitely like a privilege to be able to be in something like a startup environment or a startup environment entirely, because especially earlier on in your career, because you get to learn so many facets of something that's related to your position.
Yeah.
If it's not technically cookie cutter exactly what you went there for, a lot of people wear many hats in the startup field. But it is, yeah, maybe it's not for everyone to do forever, because it can become exhausting to not really know what you're going into every day. But it is really nice to be able to get the perspective, especially when going into, you know, building out and carving out your own agency in the future, because you have kind of a perspective on all of the positions in which you would maybe hire. And so you at least have some experience in that, where you're not like kind of going in blind of like giving feedback or anything like that. It's a very great position to be in, to have that experience, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We had, you know, there were things that I rolled my eyes at, to be quite honest. You know, that as an employee, did I want to go to a, you know, 8:30, 9 o'clock meeting every day to see where we were pacing for the month? No. But, you know,
I don't want to do that.
yeah, but did it impart upon me the, you know, the knowledge or understanding that you need to know what the numbers are, you know, like the back of your hand, and you need to be able to, you know, explain what's happening in 30 seconds to somebody who you just so happen to be in the elevator with for a second. You know, I would be in the elevator with Brian Roberts, the owner of Comcast, once in a blue moon. And like being able to take advantage of that situation and let them know that I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm working on, and I know what I'm talking about. To leave that kind of impression was super, super helpful, and carries me to this day in terms of interacting with clients.
Yeah, it's cool to know that you even know what he looks like, and that you recognize that he was in the elevator.
Yeah.
There's some people that are so far removed from like their company or whatever they started that you don't even, you know, you've never seen them before. You don't even know who they are if you were stuck in the elevator with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it, you know, kind of is a testament to staying visible. Not that I'll ever, you know, be the owner of a company like Comcast, but, you know, that visibility.
Never, unless you really don't want that.
That visibility, I think, is key versus, you know, other jobs at other agencies that I had, where our, you know, 2 levels up would just walk by us with his head in his phone and not say anything to anybody, and it rubbed everybody the wrong way. So there's definitely the things that I liked and the things that I disliked, you know, in the corporate world, I took away from and was like, okay, here's how I can build the environment and the culture that I want to build at BCC.
No, I think that's really great. I think that being able to take specific parts of it that you like is really great, because I think some people will create their own agency and then model it too much after corporate, in which, you know, you left it for a reason most of the time. So it's not necessarily something that you want to follow kind of cookie cutter in a way, but there's also, obviously, there's structures for a reason. There's things that do work and then have evidence behind them. So being able to pick and choose what you liked and what you didn't is really nice.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of those things where it felt natural as I was doing it, and then as I revisited it, I was like, okay, there was a rhyme or reason, you know, behind me doing it this way. It wasn't just vibes.
Yeah, was there anything that being in previous positions did not prepare you for? That, you know, like you really noticed, oh, damn, I need to adjust for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I won't say no. Most 9-to-5s are not preparing you for the amount of responsibilities, you know, that come with owning your own business and needing to be at least competent in things that you definitely, like you said, didn't go to school for. You know, whether that's financial, whether it's sales. I generally was not a super salesy guy. I can, you know, I'm conversational, and I eventually came to realize that can also be sales.
Yes, if you do it the right way.
Yeah. But initially I was a little bit, because it didn't feel comfortable to me. And I was always the one being sold to, or if I was selling, it was selling, you know, selling a strategy to someone who already knew me, not a complete stranger. That definitely, took some adjusting, whether it was, you know, buying courses and working with a coach, reading books, just the act of doing it and maybe failing and realizing like, oh, okay, here's what I should have done, or here, you know, here are the sales assets that I need going forward. I need to make sure we have case studies, references, etc. And sometimes maybe I need to be a little bit more pushy than feels comfortable. That was not natural at all, initially, and definitely had me throughout the pandemic trying to just drink from the fire hose, in terms of like, how do I make this feel more natural? How do I get better at it? Because obviously it's the lifeblood of any business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate you mentioning also like that sometimes it's trial and error, like figuring it out as you go, because especially with sales, there are a lot of other technical skills that you can learn like very practically, whereas sales is, especially for a person that is extremely personable, it's a little weird to be like, it almost feels inauthentic when you start learning it, and it's uncomfortable for, I think it's almost good when you go into it being slightly uncomfortable, because I think sometimes that proves that you're a good person because you're, you know, like considering the fact that, you know, I don't want to be or appear manipulative or in any way when I'm trying to, you know, like talk to someone about something. And I think that's almost the coolest thing about it is like finding an avenue that works for you, that is still personable and authentic, but isn't necessarily discounting what your work is and how you're showing it.
And that took me some time to figure out how to do, you know, because at a 9-to-5, the way that you prove, you know, is through like actually showing someone. You don't have time to show somebody a spreadsheet. Like I would get bogged down into, you know, some people want to see a spreadsheet, but other people are like, just tell me. Don't give me this hour-long rundown of every single tactic that you do. You know, I start to see their eyes glaze over and things like that. You know, for a while early on, I was selling the way that I would at a corporate job, which is, you know, getting into the weeds, because that person generally knows what you're talking about. You're both on the same wavelength, and they're just like, okay, you have to show me, as opposed to somebody coming in completely cold, who may not even know what they need, and you're trying to lead them to water, for lack of a better term, and you don't want to drown them.
Yes, no, exactly. And there's something that I think a lot of people don't recognize or like, or don't acknowledge, is that there's a lot of education involved in sales that you have to do in a very strategic way in order to not seem like offensive or condescending, but also that you're making sure that, especially if a client is coming in not necessarily knowing what they want, it's a bit difficult, especially when you're talking to someone from a small business who might be very protective of their baby that they've created. It's hard to be like, well, this is what's going wrong, because even if they're coming to you for help, sometimes they don't want to acknowledge the things that are going wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that has helped me and helped kind of grow the business is treating those relationships almost like once we have established, the rapport and relationship and things like that, a lot of the clients that we have are like, hey, if they're at a bigger company, they're like, hey, wherever we go, we're going to bring you guys because we know not you're, good people, but you have our best interest at heart. And I was like, okay, how do clearly I'm able to impart that upon someone who knows me, for a couple, who's known me for a couple months or a year or whatever. Like a lot of our client relationships are like 2-3 years or more. How do I give off that same energy to a stranger? And how do I get them to feel that I care, if it's a smaller business, that I care about your baby. If it's someone at a larger, corporation, that I can speak your language, but also, I want to make you look good. I don't want you to have to go vendor hopping and things like that. Because I got that positive feedback from existing clients who have taken me, if it's a marketing director and they leave for another company, they will bring us with them. And even, subsequent companies, we've had people, I've had people rather come with us, bring us to their next job and then bring us to the job after that. So I'm like, all right, we must be doing something right.
Yeah. Can you talk a little more about what things you found that you did right in those scenarios and how you kind of translated them to more beginner relationships, for lack of better phrasing?
Yeah, for sure. I think that, like you said, the authenticity part is honestly, I would say that's the number one thing. And I think prior, when I was trying to learn sales and I was being a little bit more rote in how I went about things instead of just being myself, it came across as inauthentic. When I would hear from clients like, oh, like, we know he cares. We know sometimes it's hard for him to say, like, no, we can't do that, or, something like that, because he wants us to succeed. Once I started to receive that feedback and I was like, okay, people can tell. And then I started hearing it in our intro conversations of someone being like, oh, I like your vibe, or I can tell that you know your stuff. And I can tell that you care about, what you do and things like that. I was like, all right, I'm now able to bring who I really am to a conversation with somebody who doesn't know me, and maybe is highly skeptical of who we are, just because in the marketing world, people will sell you a dream and they'll tell you they can get it done for $1. So that authenticity, I think, was key.
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. I hear a lot of people obviously this podcast is dating a lot of people from agencies, and I hear a lot that people come to someone saying, I've been burned by previous agencies for so and so reason all the time. And that makes me think, who am I speaking to on the podcast that has burned people? Because statistically, someone has to be doing it.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That is one of the things that everybody kind of seizes on it as like, statistically, I'm sure you've been burned by an agency, maybe a churn and burn agency, but it's like, how do I not only use that to my advantage from a sales standpoint to tell you that I'm not, and we're not. Yeah, exactly. That company. And then having people who are working, have worked with us in the past, vouch for that fact, and the fact that we are transparent, we do get results, we do care, you know, and we're just, honestly, at the end of the day, we're fun to work with. Like that's part of it also, is I want to make the relationship as fun, for lack of a better term, as possible. Like we don't have to be super stuffy and, you know, oh, this needs to be done by X, Y, and Z. We can all have a good time and still get things done. And that was my vibe in the corporate world too, was like, let's have fun. Let's
jump around a little. It's okay.
Exactly. We can, as long as it gets done, we can joke around. Now there's times where we don't need to joke around and we need to get to work, but that time doesn't need to be every single day.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's a really great outlook to have, because it being able to laugh at certain things and being able to have that relationship with your clients, like, shows authenticity in a way of like being able to see your personality in your work a little bit. Like a lot of people will be like, no, like we need to have very specific professional relationships with our clients, which obviously there's always a level of professionalism, but if you're not showing any of your personality in your work, I think maybe you're doing something wrong, because people are choosing you over someone else, or they're choosing someone else over you. And usually if you're doing the exact same work, which agencies, like, that's going to happen, there are going to be people that are doing the exact same thing as you, but what sets you aside from them is usually the vibe that they get. A lot of the time it's not just, or branding, or both.
Exactly, or both, for sure.
Exactly. And that's usually what kind of like it narrows it down, so it's good to have that outlook. To round out our podcast, because we're obviously coming up on time, I love to be forward looking. So I would love to know, in the next, say, 3 to 5 years, what kind of goals do you have for BCC Interactive? Like what are you excited about moving forward? What are, even if they're really big dreams, what are you looking forward to?
So definitely growing the team significantly. I would say right now, one of the things that I've taken on kind of as a pet project, I'm sure everyone says this, but this is a like personal and professional, is just how can I utilize automation or AI to make our processes more efficient, and maybe, building additional service offerings from utilizing the AI world. It feels like there's a new tool or, slogan out there every other week. So utilizing AI, growing the team, and I would say, possibly getting into different industries. Right now, we're a little more like e-com and somewhat service-based. But one of my kind of passions has always been the mental health space. I know with healthcare and everything, it's a little bit wonky, but helping therapists find clients and helping clients find therapists. Because personally, when I needed one and I would go looking on Google, it was almost impossible to find.
I had a similar experience.
Yeah. So that, that's more of like my personal, I guess, vibe. And I want to, help impart that on, I think, an underserved industry through the company.
I think that's lovely. And I think that passion projects are something that really propels people in their career sometimes. So I hope that you get to be involved in the mental health space a little bit more. I know that with HIPAA and everything, there's some complexities that you have to learn and get your head around if you're not familiar with this space. But it's I talk to a lot of people that are specifically in that niche, and everyone does like find their own way in it too. So I'm sure that if you're already capable of doing it in other spaces, you know, it's just a few more things to learn. So I am excited for your future endeavors. And thank you so much for coming on today. This was absolutely lovely. Love talking about Philadelphia. Love talking about your business. I think that this was really fun. And thank you for sewing your personality into this as well as your business itself.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was a good time. Always good to do talk to another Philadelphian.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you again so much for joining me. Thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget to check out Cory in the description. And thank you for joining us today. Have a lovely day.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.